In the southwestern corner of Latvia, touching on the Baltic Sea, lies the nature park Pape. Stretching over the area of 51,000 hectares, its territory comprises a great diversity of natural ecosystems. This territory is designated as EU Natura 2000 site and included in the list of wetlands of international importance under Ramsar Convention. It is also a place where the descendants of wild horses or tarpans have been grazing since almost 10 years. The Latvian Worldwide Fund for Nature released the first 18 wild horses in the Lake Pape meadows in 1999. They rapidly adjusted themselves to their new environment, and since then their presence has been ensuring the existence of various types of meadows and open natural landscapes. Today, more than 36 horses graze here. Right from the first winter, it was obvious that the wild horses are ready to accept this area as their new home. It was not by accident that the Lake Pape area was chosen as the testing ground for renewing the wild horse population. The nature park is unique because of its biodiversity. Here you can find a great variety of natural ecosystems in a relatively small territory. This territory started taking shape at the end of the last ice age, when two lakes were formed on the coast of the Baltic Sea, the Lake Pape and the Lake Nida. Nowadays, only the first of them still retains the name of a lake. It receives fresh water from two inflowing rivers, but in stormy weather, the lake also receives an influx of seawater generating biological diversity peculiar to coastal lagoons. In the course of time, human activity has affected the lake, changing its natural hydrology and contributing to the overgrowing of the lake. Under the Soviet regime, the water exchange between the sea and the lake was reduced by building the Liepāja Canal and the floodgates. Due to this interference in the natural processes, the lake has been rapidly overgrowing. To preserve the natural balance and partially renew the natural water exchange, the outfalls of Liepāja and Purvs in the lake have been deepened within the EU LIFE project. Furthermore, 300 hectares of reeds were mowed to create suitable conditions for nesting birds and other animals. Lake Pape is a significant habitat for the bittern, grey-legged goose and bearded reedling that in great numbers populate the reed beds during the nesting season. The Pape beach is a mixture of sand and pebbles, but sometimes you can find also chunks of peat washed out from the bog by the stormy sea. You can't find that anywhere else in Latvia. The untouched seacoast is a haven for wading birds. In the beginning of the 19th century, Pape was one of the largest fishing villages on the Kurzeme coast. It had about 100 homesteads. After World War II, it became a closed military territory. Agriculture slowly declined, and local inhabitants moved to other places. But the fishing villages survived, and the descendants of the old fishermen are still living on the seacoast at the Lake Pape. The nature park is located on the White Sea-Baltic Sea migration route of birds. During the spring and autumn migration, millions of birds and bats fly over it. Thousands of water birds congregate in the coastal waters of the Baltic Sea, while the bulk of migrating birds cross a narrow strip of land between the sea and the Lake Pape. All bird species can be observed here, from the smallest, such as a goldcrest, to the white-tailed eagle. All in all, 278 bird species have been registered here. But also in summer, the meadows of the nature park are alive with such rare bird species as the corncrake, white-tailed eagle, lesser spotted eagle and crane, while Nida Bog provides a refuge for the whimbrel and golden plover. In 1966, an ornithological station was established in Pape for the purpose of counting and ringing migrating birds. Since then, the ornithologists have received more than 3,000 reports from 31 countries on birds ringed in Pape. Thanks to the activities of the ornithologists, a number of new species have been added to the Latvian ornithological fauna, such as water pipit, Pallas warbler, rustic bunting, and others. The Latvian Worldwide Fund for Nature has built an observation tower on the shore of the Lake Pape and 2 hides that can be used by visitors for bird observation and photography. In 2006, a new tower was built here within the EU Life Nature project, specially designed for bird observation during the migration. The lake shore is covered by thick reed beds which are used by geese during the molting season. The large herbivores feed on the reeds, often stepping far into the lake. Thus meadows are being formed on the edge of the reed beds where the geese feel like home. In this way, thousands of animals and plants in the nature park find themselves in a constant and natural interaction. In 2004, the Pape wild horse population was joined by 23 oryxen. Centuries ago, these animals roamed over huge territories in southern and central Europe, northern Africa and Central Asia. Their population was decimated by intensive hunting, so that by the 17th century there were no oryxen left. In 1930, the auroch was bred back into existence by using domestic cattle breeds that were their descendants. Archaeological findings and local folklore testify to the former presence of wild horses in the territory of Latvia. In prehistoric times, before the age of agriculture, wild horses were common all across Europe. These grey, stocky animals with a dark dorsal stripe formed and maintained natural meadows. In the Middle Ages and later, the wild horse became extinct through hunting because they trampled down the farmers' fields. The last wild horse is said to have died in Russia in 1887. Before that happened, the Polish farmers captured these animals and trained them to work. That is how the so-called konik polski, or Polish horse, was created. It is from these animals that the wild horses now living in Pape were bred by means of reflexive selection. Geographically, the villages are isolated from the mainland. Maybe that's why the old lifestyle, based on man's coexistence with nature, has survived here better than elsewhere. Built from timber and stone and covered by reed roofs, the fishermen's houses are a typical example of local architecture. Each year, the herd of wild horses is supplemented by a new generation, and that only means that the foals born here will form an integral part of the landscape not only in Pape, but in other places in Latvia as well. The landscape of the nature park is formed by small meadows, separately standing trees, and clusters of bushes and trees. The presence of large herbivores is significant for the regeneration of oak forests. Wild horses keep the landscape open for a great variety of meadow plants and animals. Grey-legged geese and cranes land in the meadows grazed by horses to feed. Birds of the countryside nest in floodplain meadows. Foxes, storks and lesser spotted eagles prey on mice and grasshoppers. Wild flowers return to the formerly agricultural lands, and the local farmers can collect more honey. Nature Park Pape is the second most visited tourist site in Liepāja region. Tourist groups can visit the park accompanied by permanent or seasonal guides and observe the horses and other wild inhabitants of the park without disturbing them. The wild horses live in harems or in groups of young horses and stallions. This type of social organization helps them survive the winter and repel the insects as well as the beasts. A harem is formed by a single male and several mares and foals. Stallions without the harem form their own groups, fighting each other to prove their strengths and readiness to become the leader. Among the birds and animals living in the Pape Nature Park, 75 bird species and 19 animal species are protected in the European Union. That is why a Life Nature project was started here in the year 2003, the main task of which was to protect and restore the natural biodiversity of this territory, as well as to perform certain management activities. One of the main objectives of the EU Nature project was to promote long-term protection and development of the territory by subordinating economic activities to natural processes. In 2007, the Nature Management Plan for the next 10 years was approved. The plan was drafted by 18 experts in biology and hydrology, and it comprises activities that would ensure the protection of biodiversity and promote its regeneration. In order to engage the local community in the decision-making process, public discussions were organized, information materials printed, and the park's website created for easy access to information.